Punchlines like pressure. Hey yo. Hey yo. Hey yo. Hey yo. Hey yo. Punchlines like pressure. Hey yo. Hey yo. Hey yo.
I mean, and that's just the way it is, because this is the Bees of Boxing. I am Chris Tidwell, and that, of course, is none other than the Steve Swift of the Bees of Boxing with Steve Swift, the pugilistic prophet from across the pond, if you were. Steve, how you doing today, brother?
I'm all right, thank you. We've had lots of rain to talk about, so that's good. We like to talk about that in this country.
Is that's what it's a slow day in the news? Because you know what? It's been a slow week as far as, like, I want to say this correctly, as far as big name fights. We haven't, like, we've been spoiled up to this point with some very big name fights. But this past week was a lot of guys that needed to kind of like make their bones, get their fights back. We saw some fights with a couple of guys coming off of losses. We saw some things, but those aren't even the big things in the news. Let me ask you about this one here first. Jai Opetaia is now the undisputed Zuffa champion, whatever that means. That's like the undisputed IBF champion or the undisputed WBC champion, as far as I'm concerned. But the IBF has a bit of a problem. Jai Opetaia has a bit of a problem. Now we're talking the possibility of lawsuits, from what I hear. Tell me what you know about all of this.
Well, if you ask Oscar De La Hoya, and I did, and he said, "Hey, Steve, I'll give you he clapped back and then said, I'll give you the skinny on this." He's saying, well, I don't think that Jai's written that himself. But he wouldn't have done, would he, Oscar? Lawyers would have written it. But I think he's suggesting that it's been written for him by the organisation who he's employed by at the moment. I think he's suggesting that. But the lawsuit itself, I don't know much about it, except for I think there's an allegation, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're not being fair.
Collusion.
The IBF are not, what's that?
Collusion.
Collusion
was the word that was being thrown out, right? Because at first you heard the story. You heard the story about how there was the IBF guy was upset because the belt wasn't being shown enough, and that was the reason. Then you heard reason number two, and then recently the one that you heard was that there was a string of emails that got uncovered because, you know, this is the era that we live in, apparently, ladies and gentlemen. And it's nice to see that somebody other than, you know, Assange is digging through the email process, and the IBF is on call this time. Listen, what they're saying is that the IBF is actually colluded, and they're upset because there's a new kid on the block, basically, and they want to punish all of the parties involved. Is this what I'm hearing?
Yeah, but that's really that just strikes me as being a bit childish. Correct me if I'm wrong again. There is no legal basis for this, is there? Because what the IBF have said is sanctioning fees of about 85 grand were paid, and the IBF are saying we're paying that back. We're not keeping the fees. That would be an issue if they were. I don't think that's not been disputed, has it? So the legal challenge is about you're not being very nice to Zuffa Boxing because you're all working together, and you're not being very nice to us. We thought that we were going to be able to put this title. The allegation is, of course, what I've heard is that the IBF were there and said, "Yep, put our nice shiny belt by there." And as soon as they heard that the Ring magazine, that the Duffer belt was up for grabs, they said, "Nope, we got on a plane and we're going back." That's what I heard. So there's no basis to this, is there? Am I wrong? Because there's no legal basis. Is there?
Well, here would be my first legal basis on this one. When Jai Opetaia and his team paid that money to the IBF, that money's gone. Then this comes out, and the IBF says, we're going to pay that money back. Has it been paid back? Because if it hasn't been paid back, then it automatically got paid out from Jai Opetaia's team to them. It goes into a bank account. That bank account immediately starts collecting interest off of the amount of money that was just put into it. Is that interest money going to be going back, or is that free and clear money that the IBF now gets to keep, like it's an oil tanker from Venezuela?
But the thing is, you're quite right about this. But the thing is that's not the headline, is it? The headline that's coming, and this is what happens at the moment with the business of boxing, is that the headline is, oh, well, you've not been very nice to us. I mean, the collusion, you can use that word collusion, but really what it comes down to, doesn't it, is you're working against this other organization in some way. And it's a ramping up of Zuffa boxing versus sanctioning bodies, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and we said this. We've already said that this was going to happen, and now we're going to see it happening because the sanctioning bodies and everybody else, and it seems like that the town crier for the sanctioning bodies seems to be Oscar De La Hoya, because he's more than willing to stand on this soapbox and scream against Dana White because they have a history of doing this in the past already. I'll tell you right now, Oscar De La Hoya, to me, comes across as a guy who is doing just that. I'm going to stick up for these sanctioning bodies because they do right by me. But there was a time, Oscar, when they didn't always do right by you. Just because they've let you into the club is exactly what you're doing. And you're not willing to let somebody else into the club. Maybe Zuffa doesn't want to be in the club. And maybe everybody is looking at Zuffa boxing like, you should be giving us more. We want more and we expect more. Well, nobody says anything about Pro Box. Nobody says anything about the under, the small club shows that Frank Warren puts on. Nobody says anything about these things, right? So really, what's it about? Is it about the profile that Zuffa brings to this immediately? And that's why there's this push back and forth?
Yes, I suspect it is. And remember, Zuffa will have to work with sanctioning bodies. They will have to.
If they want to show those belts, 100% they're going to have to, because that's going to be the next thing, is you're not even allowed to have our belt on there, because there's still the pictures. There's still the pictures of Jai Opetaia holding up that IBF belt along with the ring belt and wearing the Zuffa belt after he won the Zuffa belt. So is that going to be part of some kind of a lawsuit? Could the IBF then turn around and say, hey, you're actually showing off our product, but it's not yours? Because he was stripped, if I'm not mistaken, before that picture was taken, right?
Well, I don't know, because the IBF then said, because I heard he had been stripped, and then I heard they were considering this.
Oh,
so I don't know.
The money, because they want to keep the money.
Not necessarily. I mean, they might.
Of course, because if they strip him and they try to figure out if they stripped him and then the money came after the stripping, they absolutely have to give it back.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the legality of it, if they had sensed that there was going to be some kind of legal pushback or legal challenge, then you would then say, hang on a minute, you'd soften your approach, wouldn't you? And say, let's have a think about this. It's if Zuffa want to keep Jai Opetaia, he has said, and we don't know what, we weren't in the room. We don't know what was said, but he said, I had promises made to me. Words to that effect by Zuffa. Words to that effect. I think he used the word promises. I think he did. Now, are those promises about, as I say, you're going to get a big cannoli every day, or I'll make sure you get a fresh basket of fruit? No, I think it was about undisputed. So they're going to have to work with sanctioning bodies, or, and I keep tooting this horn, Jai Opetaia will cause trouble. And he's absolutely in his right to do so if he was made promises.
Was he made promises from the sanctioning bodies as well? And really does this now, will that end up putting a light on the term undisputed? Because now there is going to be a dispute, right? Because there's going, if the sanctioning bodies don't allow him, because we've already, up to this point, before signing with Zuffa, that was the poster boy of he's our guy. He's going to be the guy to come through and unify all of these titles. And that is the cruiserweight guy. And he's our next Usyk and blah, blah, blah. And oh, he signed with who? Oh, that guy's nothing. He was never anything. He wasn't going to be anything without us. This is the mentality that they're kind of putting off because they're trying to create that narrative. In doing so, there's always going to be a dispute, right?
Yes, I mean, and it is competing narratives, because the other narrative is, well, you won you had this title, but actually you were in Australia. So really, in a way, there was a feeling that you're not really in the thick of it. And now you've signed with Zuffa and you've come over to the States. And what are you doing? So there's pressure as well in that respect for Jai Opetaia. Because in the past there was, well, I was here a long way away. Now I'm here in the thick of everything, as Ryan Garcia would say, where the belts are, and where are the belts? That's the issue we've got. It's going to run this one. I think you're right that there will be legal documentation back and forward. Well, really, Zuffa Boxing, if they want to work with sanctioning bodies, and they have to, reaching for the lawyer is probably not the first thing you should do, I don't think.
I think there's also the fact that here's something that sanctioning bodies don't do. They don't care where you live. Jai Opetaia, in my opinion, was never going to be the guy as long as he's fighting at 6 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the week. He had to leave Australia and go to America. Can't go to England, doesn't fit into that scene there. Can't go to Mexico, doesn't fit into that scene there. All of the TV, all of the money, all of the belts, all of the everything, all of the eyeballs are on America. And that's the unfortunate reality of the way that it works with boxing. So he had to go there. Nobody was offering him a spot other than Zuffa Boxing. So you can't blame Jai Opetaia for being like, this has to be my thing. I will play this. This is what's happening in front of me now. What happens in front of me later, I will deal with that later. And this is going to be a rocky road. But at the end of the day, the nice thing is I don't have to get up and watch Jai Opetaia fight at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday.